Oh hey, look! It's going up! Oh, oh. Yeah, so it turns out that if you zoom into the sine wave just right, it starts looking like an upward trajectory. And that's pretty much what we're doing when analyzing our history, it seems. Progress means liberalism. The more advanced our society, the more liberties and freedoms we get, right? That's pretty much the assumption. But if we were to zoom out a little bit, look at a slightly larger portion of our history, then we'd actually see that it's more of a cycle. And what's amazing to me is that this was already known 100 years ago. Listen to this. I mention the matter now because, owing to the egocentricity in our historical outlook, it is often supposed that female emancipation is an invention of the modern white man. Sometimes we imagine that we have arrived at a conception of the status of women in society which is far superior to that of any other age. We feel an inordinate pride because we regard ourselves as the only civilized society which has understood that the sexes must have social, legal, and political equality. Nothing could be farther from the truth. A female emancipating movement is a cultural phenomenon of unfailing regularity. It appears to be the necessary outcome of absolute monogamy. Now, isn't this amazing? This was written 100 years ago, 92 to be exact. Or this. No group of human beings has ever been able, or at any rate has ever consented to tolerate a state of absolute monogamy for very long. This is not surprising, for it is an unequal bargain for the women, and in the end they have always been freed from their legal disadvantages. To express the matter in popular language, they have been emancipated. This has happened regularly and unfailingly in every recorded example of absolute monogamy, except one. In that case, special circumstances prevailed. The Sumerians, Babylonians, Athenians, Romans, and Teutons began their historical careers in a condition of absolute monogamy. In each case, the women were legal nonentities. After a time, the laws were altered. A woman became a legal entity, the equal of a man. So, it's amazing to me that 100 years later, this is still not widely known. I mean, I only heard about this book from a friend. And we still think about feminism as if it were a recent invention. So in this video, I'd like to pay homage to this great book, Sex and Culture, by a British author, Joseph D. Unwin, published in 1934. I'll recite his analysis of two societies among many he studied, the ancient Babylonians and the ancient Greeks. And, as you'll see, many of the cultural issues we debate today, feminism, divorce laws, sexual ethics, these debates have also been present in ancient times, and in many cases eerily similar. Let's start with Babylon. This is a civilization dating back to the 20th century before Christ. That's 4,000 years ago. It's a civilization so ancient that its beginnings are lost in the dim recesses of time. At first, a wife was secured by a payment tirhatu to her parents. She was subject to her husband in all things and possessed no legal rights. If she denied him, she was drowned. Such conduct was regarded as an offense, not only against her husband, but also against society in general. A husband could repudiate his wife if he wished to do so. He could also sell her outright or give her as a security for a debt. Similarly, children were the property of their parents. They also could be mortgaged or sold as slaves. Parents arranged the marriages of all their children. They gave their daughters to those suitors who transferred property to them. Any child could be expelled from the house at any time and for any reason. but a son who repudiated his parents was branded and sold. This is absolute monogamy in its most stringent form. Gradually, the conditions were modified, these modifications extending sexual opportunity. First, a man's power to sell his wife or child was limited to the power to lease them for 3 years. Any wife or child given as security was free in the 4th year. Later, this power could be completely cancelled by the insertion of an appropriate clause in the marriage contract. No marriage was valid without a written contract. The payment of the bride price, tirhatu, fell out of fashion, and eventually the tirhatu became a mere formality, a small token presented on a plate. In the old days, as I have said, a refusal of conjugal rights was looked upon as an offence against society. One shall throw her into the river. Later, a wife was given an opportunity of justifying her aversion in court. If she were judged to be blameless, the court allowed her to take her dowry and to return to her own people. And it seems that when a man wished to put away his wife, he had to submit his case to the court. So greatly, indeed, had the relations between the sexes changed that, comically enough, Hammurabi had to protect a husband from his wife. He ordained that if a woman had incurred a debt before her marriage, her husband's person could not be seized, either in payment or as security. The equality of the sexes and the total disappearance of the old absolute monogamy are well illustrated by this marriage contract. Enlil-Idzu, priest of Enlil, son of Lugal-Azida, has taken Amasukal, daughter of Nonota-Manzi, to wife. 19 shekels of silver Amasukal has brought to Enlil-Idzu. If Enlil-Idzu divorces Amasukal, he shall return the 19 shekels of silver and, in addition, pay half a mina. If Amasukal divorces Enlil-Idzu, she shall forfeit the 19 shekels of silver and pay half a mina. In mutual agreement, they have both sworn by the name of the king. Such a marriage is a union of two individuals, broken and made by mutual consent. Such were the customs of the Babylonians towards the end of Hammurabi's reign. Female emancipation, freedom of divorce, legal equality of the sexes, and freedom to choose or to repudiate a sexual partner had succeeded the stern rigor of absolute monogamy. After Hammurabi's death, the Babylonians weakened. Samsu-Iluna, his son and successor, lost control of the southern provinces. The Hittites raided the country, robbed the rich temples, and returned to their own country with their booty. Soon afterwards, the Kassites dominated the once vigorous city. Okay, and next up, ancient Greece. A girl's marriage was arranged by her legal guardian, Kurios, and when she was about 15 or 16, she was handed to her husband. A special part of the house was set aside for her. To those rooms she was confined. She was not present when her husband entertained his guests, and her activities outside the house were limited to participation in religious festivals. She was not allowed to walk the streets unaccompanied. Even if she was seen looking out of a window, she was shamed. By the end of the 5th century, however, the old customs had disappeared, the sexual opportunity of both sexes being extended. There was no compulsory continence. Sexual desires could be satisfied in a direct manner. Divorce became easy and common. Pederasty appeared. The men possessed mistresses as well as wives. The women broke bounds, consoling themselves with both wine and clandestine love affairs. I have said that when a society changes its sexual regulations, the same sentiments are always expressed. The point is well illustrated by the literature of the 4th century BC, when first the girls insisted on choosing their own husbands. The parents first used the familiar arguments concerning modesty and maidenly shame. In the 5th century, these had been extolled as the greatest of feminine virtues. In a significant dialogue, a middle-class mother is depicted as remonstrating with her daughter, who announces her inability to control her desire for a certain man. The mother suggests a dose of hellebore, an alleged cure for insanity. It became a custom, too, for middle-class women to embellish their features by means of artificial devices. This is a constant theme in contemporary literature. Of a lady who delighted in these fictitious aids to beauty, it is said, and with frequent glances she surveyed her person and looked to see if others noticed her. This kind of literature would have been quite impossible in the 5th century. Alexis remarked that no sensible man ever married. His nephew Menander seems to have shared his views. Doubtless, too, when they coined the following epigrams, the later dramatists were giving their public what it wanted. Marriage is worse than disenfranchisement. Why do girls prefer old wine, but young men? Love is a severe god, especially to the old. The sudden effects of a kiss. A respectable woman does not dye her hair. A wife is an expensive luxury. Such bright little sayings could be quoted almost indefinitely from the Middle Comedy. They illustrate the shallow superficiality of the Athenians who were conquered by Philip. Now, doesn't this sound similar to our cultural discourse from today? Isn't Europe following Babylonian and Greek footsteps? Let me know what you think, and take care.